Welcome to I Heart Geek.
And welcome to another episode of I Heart Geek. We have a very special episode today. We are talking from the stage to the screen. We're talking Broadway musicals that become movies and TV shows. We're talking regular plays that become great movies. I have a lot of those because I'm not a singer type, so I like that kind of stuff. And we have special guests. We'll get to that in just a second. First up, we have Satomi. She's back again. How are you doing today?
Hi, guys. I'm super happy to be here. Super excited. Sorry, I've been MIA. Been doing my own show. I'm coming back.
I feel like you're cheating on I Heart Geek. I see how it is.
I am. Shh, but don't tell them. It's our secret.
I am them.
Oh, shoot. Well, cat's out of the bag.
And below me, we have Mr. Chris Giorgetti. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Today's podcast is sponsored by coffee. I need a lot of it.
Yeah. Guys, it's like 7:30 for me. You guys is like, ugh.
It's 10:30, but in all joking aside, I'm so excited to have our guests here because they know everything there is to know. And I am taking copious notes about things because I'm sure there are things that I still don't know.
You know, and you guys think he's kidding on this? Actually, Chris said, I don't know if I'm going to be talking because I will be taking notes. That was his first response. Yep. So, Satomi, would you like to introduce this wealth of knowledge we have on the show today?
Well, I don't want to, but I'll do it because I have to. And Chris is absolutely right. These guys are geek rock stars. Anything you want to know about Broadway, these guys are a font of knowledge. But I'm going to stop saying nice things because then their heads will not fit into the screens. So first of all, I'd like to introduce the incredibly talented, award-winning director, Mr. Andrew Glant Linden.
Hey.
Hi.
Golf clap.
It's wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Yes. He also, by the way, gives the best hugs in the business. And then, of course, we have Broadway royalty. He made me say that. Actor. He's been in how many Broadway productions?
14.
14,
wow.
You guys. 14 Broadway productions. The incredible, wonderfully unique, and occasionally flatulent Ken Cantor.
Thank you for the occasionally.
No, we're all thankful for the occasionally, you know.
It's the advantage of Zoom. we can still hear it.
14.
They didn't run very long, so it was rather easy to do.
I can't imagine, me personally, because I'm not in theater. I cannot imagine auditioning for one Broadway play, let alone probably the 100 that you had to do 14. That's
actually
wow.
Auditioning for one is very, very hard. Once you've got 3, it becomes very easy.
Really?
You walk in the door and they go, "Oh yeah, okay.
I know what you do. I know what you can't. Bye."
Yeah.
You again. So actually, what I love is just recently, I was watching some old Tony Award videos, and there in Guys and Dolls is Ken Cantor with his glorious mustache.
Until I did Phantom of the Opera, I thought that Guys and Dolls was going to be my long-running show because we actually ran almost 3 years, and I thought, well, I'm never going to be in another show that's going to run that long.
Well, how long do Broadway shows normally run, would you say?
Mine?
Self-deprecation. I love it.
What is
any show that's not Phantom? How's that?
Well, you know what it is. It really has to do with, I think it has more to do with when the show opened, because what was a standard run would be a season. If you were in a show that ran a full season, you were in a very successful show. So that would be about 400 performances. So that was the best. And then Oklahoma came along, and you're talking about over 1,200 performances. And that set a new kind of standard. And now with Phantom of the Opera and Lion King and the revival of Chicago, I mean, it's really sort of off to the races.
Yeah. Do you think Wicked's going to go that long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So-
It's got an unquenchable audience. They just keep churning them out.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I was going to ask Ken. So you said most typical shows would only run for a season. How long would shows run with you in them, minus Phantom?
4 days.
You know,
So
there's
he's
a
the
very
Ted McGinley. He's the Ted McGinley of Broadway.
there's a very famous show that played on Broadway, and they didn't get a chance to. These are the days before previews and so on, and they didn't get a chance to run a tech rehearsal for it before the opening night. They ran the opening night, and they had so many technical problems on the opening night that the intermission came more or less around 11 o'clock at night. The newspapers had already gone, the reviewers had already gone back to their newspapers and written what a terrible show it was, and the show closed before the end of Act 2.
Goodness.
So,
Wow.
So there's that's a short run.
Do you remember the name of that play?
No,
Spider-Man,
I
Into the
wish I
Dark.
could remember, but it's famous for having closed in the middle of its opening night.
So a shorter run than Flahooly.
Exactly. Flahooly was a relative success compared to that.
Yes, which was 2 weeks.
Yep.
So let me ask
Well-
this question because, as I say, I'm West Coaster. The reviewers make that much of a difference on whether their show goes or not, or is that just
Used to.
used to? Okay.
Used to.
Used to.
Phantom was panned.
Mhm.
Was universally panned by reviewers.
And then you
when it
showed up.
opened.
Yeah.
And then I showed up. And now 31 years late, wait.
Hey, you're not supposed to give away your age.
I think
I
Phantom
mean-
started going downhill when I joined the company.
Well, the frightening thing about joining, we're all replacements. This is Tommy and Chris and I, replacements in the show. And you always have the feeling you're going to join the show and you're going to be the anchor that pulls it down finally. I think everybody has that feeling when they go into the show that they're going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
So let's get on to kind of the meat of the subject today. What is your gold standard you remember as the first stage to movie performance that cranked your tractor? This is the one. I like this. And I know you guys probably liked the plays first, but again, I'm a West Coaster, so I saw the movies.
Hey! I'm a West Coaster as well.
Okay,
so you can't use that.
Well, I do because I don't go to plays. I don't get a chance. I go to strip shows, not strip shows.
Excuse me?
The strip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
All right.
So
I mean, you could do that too, but
I do want to ask, what was the first movie that you saw that was wow, they did this right? And I'm going to name mine first. And the first one I remember was Barefoot in the Park. I remember watching that as I think I was 10 or 11, and I was a theater kid at the time. I'm like, this is amazing. And that was, okay, this is how they should do the stage to TV or movie type thing. What was the first one for you guys that really grabbed you? Let's start with Chris, because he's been quiet.
I'm just a student of theater right now, but I would have to say West Side Story. The West Side Story film and A Sound of Music. Those are the two from a young age I saw that they're iconic for a reason, and the score and the acting in it is just so good. It's just don't change anything. Looking at you, Steven Spielberg, and your upcoming revival of West Side Story. But yeah,
that we've got a couple friends in.
Yeah, that's true. We do have a couple friends in the
Have Christopher Columbus do it instead. Sorry.
But yeah, I'd have to say West Side Story.
We'll get back to that.
West Side Story was the first that left an impact on me.
So Tommy?
For me, it was Fiddler on the Roof.
I had that soundtrack.
It was one of those. Again, I think sometimes musical theater gets a bad rap because what a lot of people do see is, and with all due respect to community theaters, a lot of people end up seeing community theater musicals who they tend toward the fluffier ones, the sillier ones.
Mhm.
That's just, let's have a relatively inane story and then let's sing and dance and go on. And there's a place for that in this world. But Fiddler on the Roof was deeply emotional. And even as a young kid, it was like I was moved by it, and I got it. I got the struggles, and I got the highs and the lows, and of course ran around my bedroom going, wonder of wonder, miracle of miracles. So it's, it's magic. That film still, if it comes on TV, I can't not watch it, and then I ugly cry.
Ken and Andrew, what about you guys?
Well, let me start. And I want to ask Chris a question, because I agree with him about West Side Story. That would be my choice as well. Chris, did you see the stage play before you saw the movie?
I did not. I saw the movie first, and then I saw the 2009 revival. That was my first.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. But I agree with Chris. For me, it was West Side Story. The movie just has there's a barometer that I use when I direct a show. I don't mean this literally, but the show has got to smell like the show. I think every show gives off its own aura.
Can you go into that a little deeper? What does that mean?
It's really actually hard to describe. It's not anything tangible. It's just a sense. Every show kind of gives off its own aura and feels like the show.
Mm-hmm.
Phantom has a particular aura about it. West Side Story has a particular aura about it. And when I judge the movie versions, it's does the movie smell like the show? Does it give off that same sense that the show gave off? And I think sense. West Side Story, for me, West Side Story absolutely does.
Yeah.
Even though they made some changes in the movie, they Chris, I don't know if you know, they actually changed positions of two of the songs. Cool and Krupke and G. Officer Krupke are actually switched in the movie from what they were in the stage play.
I did not know that till right now. Thank you.
to my way of thinking, it works better in the movie. They put Cool in the second act after the Rumble, which emotionally makes a lot more sense. But they had their reasons for not doing it in the stage play. So that'd be my choice. Would be West Side Story. My second choice would be Music Man. Again, mostly because it's a very faithful adaptation of the stage play, and it also captures an iconic performance of Robert Preston as Harold Hill. So those would be my two top favorites.
You know, when you talk about aura, it's an interesting thing that we're able to do working in the theater district. Just as the shows are finishing, if you walk down 44th Street, the doors are open as they're allowing the audiences to begin to leave at the end of the show. And as you pass by each theater has its own quality. Mm-hmm. As you're listening to the show, as you're seeing and I'm just talking about the very, very end of the show. It's a magical thing to wander, not actually go into the theaters, but to walk down the street and to realize that each of those theaters has its own aura.
Just to amplify that, one of my first jobs out of college, after I graduated college, one of my first jobs was bartending in the theaters, in the Broadway theaters, and I eventually worked myself up into a managerial position of that. And as manager, I had a lot more freedom when we weren't working during the first act to go to other theaters to just say hello to friends and stuff. And I'd walk into these other theaters and just spend like 5 minutes at one theater, go to another theater, and each theater sort of had its own little world about it. You walked in and all of a sudden you were thrust into Greece, or you were thrust into the Chorus Line world. And it just changed so radically. And again, it's not something that's perceptible. It's just, it's an aura. That's the only word that I can really describe about it.
But to get to the musical that most affected me when I was a kid, here in New York City, they had Channel 9, which was WOR at the time, had something that they called $1 Million Movie. And obviously they got the rights to these films at a very, very cheap price. And what they would do is they would show the film at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, and then they would run the same film at 11:30. So you could see it twice in a day, all week. So you could see it 10 times, Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, they played them back to back. So all day Saturday and all day Sunday, you could see the same film. And for me, it was Yankee Doodle Dandy. They played it over and over and over again. And Cagney's performance was magic. And I can still recite great chunks of the film. It made a very strong impression on me.
And so many people, I should say lay people, don't know what a talented tap dancer Cagney was. Incredible dancer.
Yeah.
Cagney
So
said
if you're
that was
curious about that.
Cagney said that was the only film of his that he went to see because he was so proud of the dancing. Yes, it was the only film that he saw from beginning to end of his. He was very, very proud of that film, and because he started as a dancer, and I might add, a female impersonator. And
really?
Yes,
really.
That I did not know.
Yes, in his early career, there are photos of him in drag. He and his wife had a vaudeville act, and that was part of it. But at any rate, so he was primarily a dancer, and everything else sort of he accidented into.
Outstanding. Okay, I'm going to move us a little bit. I know we already talked about the aura and the smell, but what elements does and I want you guys to think about these separately: a musical and a regular play. What makes them successful and what makes them bad? Because we've all seen bad stage to screen
as they're adapted to
film. What's the stuff what are the elements that make it great, and what's the elements that make it bad? And I want you guys to think about this in both musical and in plays, because I think they're two completely different things, especially when adapting. I think doing a play is probably a lot easier, but I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys kind of talk about this because you guys are smarter than me on this stuff. So what are those things? Let's start with Satomi this time. I
have really strong opinions about this.
No.
Who, me? I'm gonna kind of bring it all down on each of them to just sort of distill the main thing that I think is can make or break. On a musical, understanding the breadth of a stage experience, like the dance, all of that music. Too often, directors get so enamored with this idea, we're in film now, so we can get these teeny tiny little close-ups. And then you end up missing huge sections of like production numbers. And, people are dancing their butts off and you're not seeing the dang thing. And the thing is, it's not just about, let's look at these people moving. That's all part of the storytelling. That is all part of what creates this experience of a musical. Now, there's way more. I have way more opinions, but that is one of the biggest ones to me.
Let me throw something in on that. Blues Brothers, I know it wasn't a play, but it was a musical, so I'm going to throw this in. On the scene when the saxophone player when they're with the Aretha Franklin number, there's a whole scene that sax player learned all this choreography, did all this other stuff, and the video literally cut him off at the waist the entire time. So you see his feet moving, you see the bottom of the sax every now and again, and they said it was on purpose. I'm like, I don't believe you, but that's what you're talking about. And
somebody dropped the ball.
That's I understand what you're talking about on that. What about you, Ken and Andrew?
Wait. What about the plays? Are we going to do that second?
We can do the play second.
Plays. People, when they move it to film, they love to tinker with the story, and it makes me freaking crazy because it completely Doubt, which is a relatively recent play to film situation. And you've got this incredible cast, and in the play, you never know whether or not he did it, because the whole point of the play is that title that you don't know. That you really have to sit there and think about it and walk out going, I don't know what I would do because I don't know. It's putting you in that conundrum. The film, they changed it so you knew. You were like, he did it. And it absolutely killed the message. And that makes me nuts. There's more, but I will now hand over
let's go with Andrew and Ken now.
For me, I agree with Satomi on many of the points she's made. There are, however, Satomi, some exceptions to the point that you're making. Sometimes they have to reinvent the wheel.
Yes, I do understand that. Yeah.
For example, the movie version of Cabaret is nothing like the stage production. It's completely different. Even the story is different. But in that case, they purposely went to reinvent the wheel.
Mhm.
Sometimes they do it just because out of ego, or they have an idea and it doesn't work. So I think the best adaptations usually don't reinvent the wheel. They actually use the same story, the same themes that the play provided, especially in musicals. One of my favorite non-musical transfers from stage to screen is the movie Inherit the Wind. I don't know if you've ever seen. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's a terrific play, and the movie is even better for many reasons. One of the reasons is that they shot it in black and white, so all of a sudden it has a different feel. Black and white film has a different feel than color, and you also have two extraordinary performances in that film: Frederick March and Spencer Tracy, and actually Gene Kelly as Hornbecker. For me, as long as they don't change the story, they don't change the themes of the play, that makes good adaptations, unless they absolutely have to. And style has a lot to do with it too. Sometimes you can't copy the style of a stage play and move it onto the film. For example, the movie of the Fantastics, the stage play is very theatrical. You can't do that on film; it doesn't work. And the movie of the Fantastics doesn't work because they didn't find a different way of doing it. However, the movie of Chicago has a different style than the stage play, and that worked. So it's really it depends.
But they still honored, like in Chicago, it was still really honoring the original. I mean, I've seen both, and they had the same aura.
Yeah, they had the same aura, absolutely, but they took it from different points of view. The stage play is really all about honoring past vaudeville performers, and the style of the piece is in that style of past vaudeville performers. The movie, they kind of pushed that to the side, and the way they approached the movie, I got it immediately when I saw the trailer of the movie. I knew, this is what they're doing. Everything is from Roxy's point of view, Roxy's fantasies. All of the musical numbers come out of her fantasy. They don't do that in the stage play. So it's from a different point of view, but it does have the same aura. Ken.
Yeah, I'm going to take a slightly different tack than I think the rest of you are. One of the things that I love particularly about movie adaptations, musicals and films, are the particular performers. And the beauty of a film is that it's able to capture an original performance. And that's really what really turns me on when I take a look at movies, both musicals and non. If it captures an original performance so that people can go back and say, so Gwen Verdon was pretty good, huh? Let me see. And you can see her do whatever Lola wants, and you can get what it was that made her a star. That kind of a thing is something that I really look for in movies, as you'll find out when we list our top favorite movies.
If I just may add just one other thing, pacing of a movie becomes very important.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
And it should reflect, not necessarily mimic, but it should reflect the stage production. For example, the stage production of Guys and Dolls moves at lightning speed because there's an urgency to everybody's objectives on the show. The movie version of Guys and Dolls starts out the same way as the stage version, with this thing called Runyon Land.
Yeah.
And it's great. The movie version is terrific, but then the pacing of the movie is deadly. Absolutely deadly, and it goes on way too long, and you lose interest in the movie after a while. So I think pacing, trying to mimic the pacing or pay respect to the pacing of the original material is sort of important.
Yeah.
And to support what you're saying, I think the reason that opening works so well is it is the Michael Kidd original choreography, and that and possibly Sit Down, You're Rockin' the Boat, which also featured an original performer. It, to me, is what makes that film valuable. And I've created an enormous list, which I won't bore you with, of 15 or so movies that are important because they capture those performances. And the films may be flawed, and the films may be obscure or totally unknown, but they're so valuable for digging out that performance and being able to see what was Ethel Waters like when she hit Broadway in the 1920s. Well, you can see it. What was Marilyn Miller like? Well, you can see it. Ethel Merman in Call Me Madam, Bobby Morse in How to Succeed, Barbara Streisand in Funny Girl. I'm not too crazy about any of those films, but certainly to capture those performances creates a great value in my way of thinking.
Like, that's part of the reason why I love the Guys and Dolls movie adaptation, because as someone who wants to play Nicely Johnson, hopefully in the immediate future, it's so wonderful to see Stubby K, the original performer, give a performance. So it helps with, like, for me, audition prep and just how to do the character, because that's how it should be done.
Chris, that role isn't going away from you for a long time. So you'd be like, no, I'm being serious. I'm being serious about it. You that's not that you have that role in you for a long time. So don't worry. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what was yours?
Pretty much everything Ken, Andrew, and Satomi said.
Cheater.
Yeah. I mean, they said. I mean, they said pretty much everything I wanted to say. Like the story is important. Whether it's for a musical or a straight play, because the composer and the librettist spend years and years and years and years writing these stories and telling these stories the way they want to. So while I understand in movie adaptations they have to make changes here and there to help it translate better to film better, I prefer, like, if you're gonna do like a iconic musical like Sweeney Todd, for example, and I bring this one up because the movie adaptation was terrible. You have to stay true to the story. Like, I don't mind if they do like little bits and pieces, like I said before, to like make it flow better for film. But when you have something as iconic as Sweeney Todd, and then you have actors who can't sing the roles, which is a thing that drives me nuts. Like, I can think of 3 movie musicals from like the last 15 years, and I will name them: Phantom, Les Mis, and Sweeney Todd, where they cast actors for the sake of their star power, and then they can't do the role. Looking at you, Russell Crowe, because like, I would have rather watched Philip Quast, who is one of the Javerts. Like, I will go back to that 10th anniversary concert and just watch that, because they ruined Les Mis.
And how much would you give to see Angela Lansbury in Mame?
I would
instead
give
of Lucille Ball. I mean, what?
Yeah,
they managed to completely shoot themselves in the foot with that casting.
Yeah, I like even with like the Hamilton recording on Disney Plus.
I
know.
You know my pet peeve on that.
Yeah. The thing I love about why they put it on Disney Plus is it's a performance of the original cast, because there have been times where I've said, man, I would have loved to have seen an original cast. So I'm glad it's there, but at the same time, nothing beats live theater.
But it would have been nice to have an audio engineer that knew what they were doing and not, understand.
Well, and also, there were shots that cut out really important storytelling moments. And so essentially, if you get a chance, still come to New York and see the show.
Yeah.
all of these cases, because you're going to, the lens is small. The lens tends to be small. And so you miss the big picture stuff that happens when you can sit in a theater and just take in the whole stage.
Yeah. If I could just answer, Chris, go ahead, Chris. I was going
to say, fun fact, I actually did get to see the Christopher Plummer revival of Inherit the Wind back in 2007. So that show was fantastic. Like, it was a birthday present from my best friend from high school, who, like, we went to a bunch of theater shows together, and that was one of the shows we saw. And I'm so lucky I got to see that live. And then the movie was on a few nights ago. I'm like, oh man, this is a great show. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
I just want to expand on something. I want to expand on something that Chris actually said, because I absolutely agree with him about the casting a name for star power as opposed to being appropriate for the role. The movie version of Evita.
Oh.
Aside from there's some good elements. There's some good elements to the movie, but casting Madonna, because they cast Madonna, they had to lower the keys for all of the musical numbers. And because they lower the keys, there's no excitement to the material. There's no energy to the material. And I don't know if you go on YouTube, but sometimes on YouTube, someone puts on comparisons, and they'll take snippets of the same moment in a show by different people, and they'll compare one to the other. And if you listen to the one from Evita, all of a sudden they get to Madonna singing, and all of a sudden the key is dropped. And the minute you change a key, changes the energy.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a half step.
Yeah.
You know, it just changes the energy. Go ahead.
Sorry. Like I agree 100,000% with what you just said. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when they do musicals on film, because the composer picked these keys for a reason. As someone who's been spending the last 3 years writing a musical, like the tone of the song is important, because like you could get if you lower it a half step, but it keeps the same energy, I could let it slide. But when you like do something as drastic as what they did in like the Phantom movie, the Les Mis movie, and Sweeney Todd, it like there's a certain oral expectation, because these songs are stuck in our heads from just listening to them on a loop forever. So it's like,
well, not only that, but there's a visceral response to, like, they have done studies on how the way those sound waves hit the ear of different keys. They literally have gotten it down to what is the saddest key, what is the happiest
B minor.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I've seen
So,
but
so
isn't it fortunate?
Go ahead.
I was just in support of what Chris was saying. Isn't it fortunate that in addition to the movie of Sweeney Todd, you also have Angela Lansbury and George Hearn performing it in a television production, so you can see what Best Pies in London really should be. That element of preservation is critical for me, and I mean, if you're curious about why Carol Burnett made such a big splash, take a look at the 1960 television production of Once Upon a Mattress. It's as close to her original performance as you're going to get, and you see it as soon as she comes on. There's a star.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's move this a little bit. Now, you guys didn't know I was going to ask this question, but I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think about it. But I want to ask, going the other way, what movie would you like to see become a Broadway play? And I have one in my head, and I'm going to say Kevin Smith, Clerks would be amazing on stage. It's one set. You can do the whole thing without really any problem. That would be my ultimate choice. Let's see. I'm trying to see who's got an idea on one. Nobody. Wow, I should have given you guys some advance notice on this one.
Yeah, you might have to edit out some time on this one.
Yeah, you threw us a curve there.
If I had to,
just there have been so many adaptations from film to stage that
it doesn't usually
it's
go
almost kind of slim pickings.
And
anything that could conceivably be stage worthy and might be able to sell a ticket has really sort of been done. They call them commodity musicals, where the audience.
I didn't know there was a name for it. Yeah,
yeah. The audience comes in expecting a certain commodity, American in Paris or Gigi. The tip-off to me is usually when you come into the theater and you know it's an adaptation of a film. You come into the theater and the first thing you see, even before the show starts, is a big drop on stage that has the title of the film spread across the proscenium. You know that what they're trying to do is they're saying you're going to get what it is you expect to see. We may throw you some surprises, but it's basically a commodity that has already been sold.
Yeah,
and it's.
They've already adapted Star Wars. They've adapted Lord of the Rings. Yep. Oh yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Terrible.
Not on Broadway. They're in Europe, I believe.
Yeah.
And then
That's
of course,
excuse.
they're working on Dark Crystal right now. And of course, you've got your Moulin Rouge. You've got there are so many that have gone the other direction.
Like one that was particularly good was Beetlejuice. The Beetlejuice musical, like I knew it was just gonna be the movie put to music, but it was surprisingly good. For me, I would pay money to see like Die Hard the musical, or or Inglorious Bastards, the musical.
Snakes on a Plane.
You know.
Born Identity, the musical.
Okay, so let's move on, and we are going to get to our listener feedback.
And now, let's see what all of our geek rock stars have to say.
Okay, so for our listener feedback today, we let our listeners go about and talk about what their favorite stage to screen adaptation was. And wow, it's very male. Chris is going to read it today. This is a first.
Oh.
Ooh.
All right. So for our listener feedback, we'll start with Carrie Schultens. I'm sorry. I need more coffee. She says, I mean, I know it's topical, but West Side Story, of course. I also am a fan of A Few Good Men on the non-musical theater side. Great writing. Thank you, Carrie. Daniel Ariana has a book right here.
She does. As she normally does.
Oh, it's Danielle.
Danielle.
That's an interesting way to spell. I've never seen it spelled like that before. Anyway, she says, 12th Night being the basis for She's the Man, there are a handful of teen movies that are loosely based on the Bard's plays. They made his work a bit more accessible. It was appreciated and made studying it in school more enjoyable overall. I'm weird, though, and have liked Shakespeare from a very young age. I don't think that's weird. I also like Shakespeare from a very young age, but I digress.
Me too.
Plus, we stan for Amanda Bynes' teen movie royalty, and 2002 Chicago still stands as the preeminent example of a successful musical to film adaptation for me. From a very biased musical theater snob point of view, it remains the only modern age movie musical that did its source material justice while simultaneously elevating it to be viewed on the big screen. The score, the visuals, the performances, even the new additions gave the traditionally bare-bones all-black aesthetic, but no less impactful, of the stage production the pomp and circumstance audiences have been craving and arguably imagining for decades. There's more. Michelle Silva. On one hand, My Fair Lady brought us the perfect match of Audrey Hepburn and Rex Harrison in one of my favorite romantic stories of all time, with all the innocence, snarkiness, and charm of two very different characters falling in love. The cast was perfect, and it just takes me away to a simpler time when the romance was alive and well. And then on the other end of the spectrum is Sweeney Todd. This film may be a bit more tame in some aspects when compared to the play, but it nails the dark tale of a murderous barber and the cannibalism with a twisted humor only Tim Burton can do. The casting of Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter worked perfectly. I disagree, but she personally loved the adaptation. And that is our listener feedback.
Thank you very much, listeners. We did have to cut off a bunch because we had a lot, and I only put this out yesterday, so I appreciate y'all jumping up and yeah.
Hey, people are fans. You know, there's a hunger for film adaptation of musicals, but there's more importantly a hunger for it to be done well.
Right. Yeah.
And there are very few people who have done it well, at least in recent memory.
And we're going to get to that actually right now because we are going to jump to our main event.
Now it's time for the main event.
Okay, so for this verse, the main event, I asked our fantastically educated panel what are their top 5 favorite stage to screen adaptations. So I think we're going to get a lot of maybe run over. This is one of the first times we haven't talked about our picks beforehand, so I have no idea what we're going to get. So keeping my fingers crossed, I'm along for the ride. So I'm going to start with my number 5, and my number 5 is Noises Off. This I've never seen on a professional screen. I've seen it in like high schools, but I remember being a little theater nerd, and I loved this movie. And then watching the play is absolutely fantastic, no matter who takes it, because the characters are just so over the top and so much fun, and it just works. It works so well in a movie, and I don't know why it does, but it does. So tell me, what is your number 5?
I have 2 lists, and they are not in any particular order.
Cheater.
So my number 5 is just one of many. And actually, I have way more chosen, but I'm just going to have to pick 5 of each today. So one of my favorite adaptations from stage to screen film would be Gaslight, which actually started out as a play, and of course the Alfred Hitchcock, which starred it's the Hitchcock version that starred a very young Angela Lansbury. Not starred, excuse me, she played the maid. Absolutely adored that. And then as far as musicals, I'm going to go with Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which is a wonderful live show. And then as a film is sort of weird and bizarre and just delightful.
I feel like I want to watch the stage show of that before I can judge it, because I wasn't I liked a lot of the things that I heard on the soundtrack, but I feel like I need to see the live.
The stage show is like getting hit in the face with bugle beads and glitter. It is just, it's a kick in the pants when you've got a good Hedwig. You need a good Hedwig.
Ken?
Yeah, my list, again, is not in any particular order. So I'll just give you my number 5 on my list, which is not to say that it would be number 5 out of 5. King and I, which I think is an excellent adaptation of a stage production. And it's to my way of thinking, preferable to the stage production, which I've seen many, many times. But the movie is just absolute perfection in casting, in orchestration, the whole thing is just ideal.
Very good. Andrew?
Oh yeah. I have a 3-way tie for number 5. Okay. The Sound of Music, because it's beautifully filmed, and my other 2 are Pajama Game and Damn Yankees, because they are really. It's almost as if they took the camera and just filmed the stage play. It's that faithful adaptation. Plus, you have the iconic choreography of Bob Fosse captured and preserved in both films, and a couple of performances. So that'd be my number 5.
Very good. Chris?
For my number 5, and I thought about excluding it from this list, but I included it because it's a valuable tool to see an original cast. The Hamilton recording that's on Disney Plus is my number 5. Like I said before, there have been so many shows where I've said, man, I'd love to go back in time and see insert name of show here, just to see what the original cast would do. And while it doesn't beat seeing the show live in a theater, it helps expose the public who would normally not be into theater to this wonderful world that we get to live in. So for the fact that it is a recording of a live performance of the original cast of like a really popular show, that's why it's on my number 5.
Very good. Okay, number 4. My number 4 might be controversial because a lot of people didn't like it, but I liked Rent. I've seen the live version. I've seen the video. I like it. I think they took a definite risk on it, making it literally a sing through opera the whole time, but it worked for me. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't, but this is about my list, not yours. So, so tell me, what is your number 4 is?
Well, I am not including any any filming of live productions in my list. So
yeah, Chris.
I will continue on. Although, I mean, Hamilton needed to be mentioned because it's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
So for play, Prelude to a Kiss. It's just a delightfully strange story, and it really worked well on film. It really worked beautifully on film. And actually, the gentleman, and I'm blanking on his name, who played the old man, also was in the Broadway production. So it's kind of wonderful when you sort of get a little bit of of that live performance because you're getting the originator of the role. And then for musical, we've talked about it quite a bit. I love Cabaret. I just think it's, you know, it really gets the smell. It gets the smell.
I think that's got to be a new catchphrase for us.
Of the show. It really is. It
What's
really
that
is.
smell?
And if y'all haven't seen, I mean, there's this great like down because it's dirty. It's down and dirty and gritty. And you know, to get that well is just yummy. It's
very good. Ken?
About that smell, this has nothing to do with anything. We were on stage. we were on stage, and Act 2 of Phantom of the Opera was about to start, and we're all up on the masquerade stairs. And somebody said, "What's that smell?" And I said, "Act 2."
Wow.
Yes, the one-liners are rampant.
Yes. So what is your number 4, Ken?
My number 4, again, really, these aren't in any particular order, is happens to be West Side Story, which I think is just an absolutely brilliant, brilliant film. And I'm going to leave it to Andrew to expound on it because I know he feels considerably strong about this film. But I'll just leave it to say that it's just one of the best.
Outstanding. Go ahead, Andrew.
My number 4 choice is The King and I. I think it's a beautifully the dialogue adaptation is terrific. The way it was shot is terrific. You have the iconic performance of Yul Brynner captured, as well as Jerome Robbins' brilliant choreography and staging of every single number, including the charming "Getting to Know You." Absolutely charming and funny. Jerome Robbins could be very, very funny when he wanted to be. And you have to get to one of the points that Chris made before about a star being hired. Debra Carr gives a fabulous performance as Anna Leonowens. Even though she was dubbed partially, it was a beautiful dubbing job between her and Marnie Nixon. The voices really matched. So the whole thing, the whole movie is just beautiful.
Very good.
I might add that we were very fortunate with regard to the movie of King and I, that they were able to do the dubbing. When Gertrude Lawrence was playing it originally on Broadway, her pitch had a tendency to be not, shall we say, pure. And
good is what you're saying. I got you. Okay.
You know, she was a star, but vocally, you know, could be chancy. And apparently, at one performance, Noel Coward was an old friend of Gertrude Lawrence, was in the back of the house with Richard Rodgers seeing King and I for the first time. And just as Gertrude Lawrence was reaching the climax of "Hello, Young Lovers," as her pitch became more and more wobbly as she reached the heights of the number, the orchestra started playing louder and louder and louder.
Oh.
And at the very end, they were at full crescendo. And Noel Coward looked over at Richard Rodgers and said, "Very wise."
Oh, wow. Chris, follow that.
It's always going to be tough following these two because they know everything. But for my number 4, I'm going with something a little more modern. Into the Woods, the 2014 adaptation of one of my favorite Sondheim musicals of all time. Now, when Disney announced that they were going to make an adaptation of Into the Woods, I was like, oh no, they're going to do what they did to Sweeney Todd and ruin it, because I love Stephen Sondheim. Like, Into the Woods and Sweeney Todd are like my 2 favorite Sondheim shows of all time. But, you know, of the movie musicals, I should say, of the 2000s and the 2010s, this one actually turned out okay. Because, you know, you got Meryl Streep, who's amazing in everything, and I'll just watch her do anything. But, you know, for the most part, it stayed true to the story, and that's a big thing for me. Because if you we talked about this in depth earlier, like if you make changes with like the key, the story, or whatever, it's gonna ruin the experience. So I'm just glad it turned out okay.
Nice. Okay, up to number 3. My number 3 is The Wiz. Obviously, superior to anything they ever could have put on stage with the people they had on. You can't beat it. Period. I mean, there's that one is one that is going to be better than anything you could ever put on stage. Sorry, guys. So tell me, you're up.
I've seen The Wiz live, and it is fantastic. And I'm actually gonna just have to hop on that with you. I grew up on The Wiz, Diana Ross. All of the names. Apparently names are just beyond me today. It's just
Michael
one of those
Jackson
days,
is one of
y'all.
those names,
It's
yeah.
one of those days. But incredible performances, and they understood how to shoot it. So you got a lot of full body shots, and then they came in when it was right to come in.
Yeah.
To get those little magic moments, and then they pulled way out for those incredible production numbers. I mean, Brand New Day is just like beyond. And again, these are in no particular order, but I actually happen to be a big fan, and I know it's not people's favorite Shakespeare play, but I loved the adaptation of Titus Andronicus with Anthony Hopkins. I know. I mean, it's pretty much like American Horror Story as Shakespeare. Let's admit it. It's just, it's gory and it's weird, and it's, but with these haunting imagery, and it's just an indulgence. It's just an indulgence. So it's Julie Taymor, right? Yep. So I mean, it's classic Julie Taymor, where it's just, the imagery is just visceral, and so yeah, I was down with that one.
Nice. Ken?
Yep, mine again, not in any order. Number 3 is Music Man, which I never tire of watching. And we've been teaching an online course on musical theater. And I must say, after taking Andrew's course in it, I always respected Music Man, but I must say that it is a much more sophisticated musical in its writing than anyone would give it credit for. And I would just put in a plug for a new book that's coming out within the next couple of weeks, which is a full evaluation of Meredith Willson's career, centering obviously on Music Man, which was his big hit. It was written by the book is written by Dominic McHugh, who wrote a wonderful book on the development of My Fair Lady. And in this book, he will go into the details that people have always questioned about Music Man, who wrote My White Knight and Being in Love, and was it really written by Meredith Willson? All of this is going to be gone into in the book, and it promises to be a very interesting book. I can hardly wait to read it.
Very good. Andrew?
My number 3 is My Fair Lady. Mostly because it preserves Rex Harrison's performance, which is quite iconic. I'm not a fan of the dubbing of Audrey Hepburn, but I do love having Rex Harrison's performance as Henry Higgins captured on film.
With that being said, I do actually have a question. Was Breakfast at Tiffany's ever a play?
Oh, yes.
It was that bad. Okay. I think that we will avoid that one from that look.
No. It closed out of town. David Merrick closed it out of town. It starred Mary Tyler Moore and Richard Chamberlain, and it was a notorious flop in that it never came in. And they were in such trouble with it that at one point, quite seriously, the book was rewritten and it was performed, rewritten by Edward Albee.
Wow.
But oh yes, that was a notorious one. And I seem to recall there was also a stage production of a non-musical adaptation on stage, but I wouldn't put my life on that.
That's what I would want to see, is the non-musical on that. But that's me. Chris, your turn.
For my number 3, I'm going with the 1983 version of The Pirates of Penzance. It's a wonderful adaptation of the 1980 Shakespeare in the Park, Joseph Papp production, and all of the original cast was in the show with one exception, and that was Angela Lansbury replacing Estelle Parsons as Ruth. I was Major General Stanley in high school when we did it. It's my favorite Gilbert and Sullivan show. It is so much fun.
Can you still do Modern Major General?
Yes, with practice. I can still do it. It's been almost 20 years. Oh my goodness, since we did that.
You're 12. How does that work?
I'm a Time Lord. I go back and forward in time.
Got it.
There it is.
But it's just like it's kind of like not that there is actually a recording of the Shakespeare in the Park live performance, but this kind of it has the same feeling of seeing a live performance because
Yeah.
they shorten and extend certain bits, but it's great. It's GNS. It's fun. That's underrated it's an underrated movie.
Outstanding.
There's also, just if anybody's curious, on YouTube, there is a version of that's overdubbed with the lyrics of Baby Got Back. That is one of the most delightful videos ever put on YouTube.
Wow. Number 2. I was not to say it. Whoa, my face turned red. Wow.
Yes, it did.
My number 2 is Rocky Horror Picture Show. Duh. If that was not mentioned on iHeart Geek, then I would probably be lynched. Duh. Everybody loves that movie. Everybody loves the play. There is no greater than Tim Curry. Period. Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody in that was ideal, and it feels like you are watching a stage show when you're watching it on TV. Yeah. And that's what they did right. And most even everybody we've talked about, most can't grasp it like they did. I don't know what they did that was so different, but it felt like a stage show the entire time. And the campiness and the cheesiness, they didn't go with any special effects that weren't going to be on stage. I think that might be part of it. So Tommy, what is your number 2?
Well, again, in no particular order. For play, the recent Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. The performances in that film, holy expletive.
Good job. I didn't have to guitar you out today.
Thank you. I mean, it's already like a real gut punch of a play, but geez, oh God, it just gets you. It gets you right here. And Chadwick Boseman.
Deep breath.
But really,
Goose Frava.
I mean, that really, yeah. We could do a whole show on it. Musically, I think I'm going to go now with West Side Story. We've already talked so much about it. I am excited, but cautiously excited about the new film. The trailers look incredible, but again, it's like how do you capture it? And when you go back to the original, again, they did this wonderful. They knew how to shoot choreography, and especially in a show like that, the choreography really propels the story, and so the fact that they honored that throughout, it's magic to this day. It's really a special film.
Very good. Ken?
It is with no shame that I mention number 2. The Sound of Music is simply one of the most perfect movie musicals that I've ever seen. I just love it. I love it from top to bottom. And and it's it has its major differences from the stage show, but I just love it. And as if it doesn't give me enough happiness, then the Bill Baird puppets come on, and Lonely Goatherd, done by those puppets. I was a big fan of puppetry when I was growing up, and a big fan of Bill Baird's. And it's so wonderful to look at it, because when they designed their puppets, it's remarkable to see the similarities between the puppeteer and the puppet. And I see Bill Baird's wife there. I see Cora Baird on in the screen. I see Bill Baird. I see Faz Fakis. I see all of these wonderful, wonderful puppeteers, and there are their likenesses in the puppets. So you put it all together, and I'm not ashamed to say how much I love it.
Andrew?
Number 2 for me, straight play wise, would be Auntie Mame. I love the film of Auntie Mame.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's a wonderful film, and watching Rosalind Russell is an acting lesson in of itself. It's just beautiful. For musical, it would be Music Man. Again, because you have the iconic performance of Robert Preston, which is perfect, and you have the choreography by Anna White. But more important, both Auntie Mame and both Music Man were filmed to the film medium by the original stage director, Morton DaCosta.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the same sensibility, the same director sensibility from the stage play to the movie. And that's one of the reasons why they both work so well.
Chris?
For my number 2, it's 1955's Guys and Dolls. Of course it's going to be up there for me because Nicely Nicely Johnson is a role I hope to play in the next 15 to 20 minutes. The 1992 revival recording I listened to on a loop, and I think Ken knows someone who was in that show. Ken, do you know anyone who was in that show?
Yeah, I know a handful. Yes.
Yeah. But you know, about the movie, while I didn't like how they took out like 5 or 6 songs and add a couple of songs to give Sinatra more screen time, I just love this adaptation because it for the most part it stays true to the musical, even though the pacing is like so slow. But that's my number 2. And before we get into our number 1s, I think Ken and Andrew should go last for their number 1 picks.
I will go absolutely last.
I think that's fair. We'll do that. Okay, so number 1, my number 1 is Barefoot in the Park, as I mentioned before. One of not just one of my favorite adaptations; it's one of my favorite movies. I love the story to death. It's if I ever do anything at the community theater or anything else, this is what I want to do, and I want to be the upstairs neighbor because I want to just play that part. And just in case it doesn't get mentioned, so I don't get slapped by somebody, Grease should probably be thrown on somewhere in our list. Okay, even though I don't personally like it very much, but I know a lot of people do, so that's for everybody else that's yelling at me right now that it hadn't been mentioned yet. So tell me, what is your number 1?
I'm going to try to make it fast because I'm going to honorable mention. So I'm going to honorable mention real quick, Madness of King George. But for my favorite all-time play adaptation is Amadeus. I at one point could have I
can't help it.
At one point I could have recited the entire film to you. I just exquisite. And then musical theater, honorable mention, Little Shop of Horrors with the Rick Moranis, Steve Martin. So much fun. But my number 1, and I already talked about it today, so I won't go into it more, but Fiddler on the Roof. It just sticks with me.
Sorry. You know it's a good musical when a non-musical person starts humming it immediately when you say it.
Yes.
Chris.
For honorable mention, I have The Who's Tommy, just because
dang it.
I love that album. And I also want to go on record saying West Side Story is its own tier of amazing. So West Side Story is on like its own category. So for my number 1, 1952, Singing in the Rain. It is literally the perfect movie musical, in my opinion. Ken and Andrew will have choice words for me after the show, probably. I love it. My fiance and I, we try to watch it at least once a year. It's just, it's so joyful. It's so wonderful. You never have a bad time watching it. Plus, every time I watch the dancing in this movie, I'm just, my jaw's on the floor going, how did they do this? I love this movie, so that's my number 1.
Now, I'm just going to ask Ken and Andrew, didn't that one go from film to stage, or was that?
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
that was the other way.
And not successfully at all.
Not successfully at all.
So Andrew, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just on Singing in the Rain. I became good friends with Betty Comden, who co-authored the screenplay to the film.
Of course you did.
For a number of years. No, for very odd reasons. But the point is, once we were talking about Singing in the Rain, she actually asked me which I preferred, Singing in the Rain or Bandwagon. I said Bandwagon, and she shaked her head like this, and she said, that's because you're in theater. But with regard to Singing in the Rain, she once commented how odd it was. Someone had sent her a book about writing screenplays. And they used Singing in the Rain as the example of how to write a magnificent screenplay. And they wrote out a whole formula that they had followed with Singing in the Rain, and that if you follow this formula, you will write wonderful, wonderful screenplays. And she said, we were just making a movie. How can they find so much in this film? It was just one of so many for her. But they were justifiably proud of that film, and I join your enthusiasm.
Okay, my number 1 non-music is Inherit the Wind. because watching Frederick March, Gene Kelly, and especially Spencer Tracy, they're just magnificent. My number one musical, we've said it many times, West Side Story. It's absolutely brilliant, mostly because of Jerome Robbins. Okay. I also the stage production is also my number one favorite. I've directed and choreographed 8 productions of West Side Story. I never tire of it on stage. And if even in the movie, if I see it on Channel 11 in the worst print ever shown, I'll stay up and watch it because of mostly Jerome Robbins' work. And Chris, I've seen, and Tommy, you mentioned the trailer. I'm very apprehensive about this remake, but the trailer, it smells like West Side Story. It really does. Yeah. I don't know what the whole movie's going to be like, but it definitely smells right. It smells absolutely perfect. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Very good. I'll close this out, Ken.
Hey, get out your pencils and paper because it's a movie that none of you have mentioned. We all talk about the golden age of the Broadway musical, and we have a vague impression of what it was actually like. This film shows you exactly what the golden age of the musical theater is like. It's not a great show. It's not a great film, but as a document, it is absolutely imperishable and urgently available to be seen. It was a movie that they made of a Broadway show that had played on Broadway and then went out on national tour. And at the end of the national tour, they put together enough money to make a 3D version of this,
Jaws.
Of
yes,
of this musical, which is a stage show, and it is done on the sets. You see all of the scene changes. You see the in-ones. You see all of the mechanics, the construction of a typical 1950s musical as it was presented on stage. And because of that, I think it is one of the most valuable films of movie musicals ever made. It's a show called Top Banana. And it was a show that starred Phil Silvers. He won the Tony Award for his performance in it. And it is a lot of fun. Rose Marie is in it as his romantic lead in the film. And if you want to see what the golden age of the musical theater was like on stage, Top Banana. It has a terrific score by Johnny Mercer and very ordinary choreography, very ordinary direction. It is the middle of the road, typical golden age musical on stage. It's not Oklahoma. It's not breaking any new boundaries. It's not brilliant. It's just typical.
They just set up a camera, basically.
Well, no, they move the camera around a little bit, but not a whole hell of a lot. But it is so worth seeing as an important historical document. So I repeat it again, Top Banana.
I'm going to check it out, actually, if I can find it. I'm going to be looking anyway.
Ken, you are my top banana.
Oh, the guy that wears bananas on his feet they're actually called slippers. Oh, bad joke. Oh, that's like vaudeville bad. Okay, so that was a show, guys. Thank you so much to Andrew and Ken for showing up today. You guys are incredible. I'd love to have you back. Sometimes you guys need to have your own show. You guys definitely need to have your own show, and I will listen to it every week if you guys can put one out. Yeah. Check out our Facebook page. Talk to us. We do talk back. Go to our YouTube. Really important on the YouTube. Hit the little thumbs up thing. That helps us out a lot. Go to our Patreon. We have new content coming up every single week. Right now we're starting to cover every single Marvel movie from top to bottom. Yeah, that's a lot. That's worth the price of admission right there. And we got new stickers coming out, all sorts of new stuff. So keep your eye open. www.iheartgeekshow.com. Use the com. We paid extra for it. And until next time, I'm Dub. I'm here with Satomi and Chris, and I'm here with Andrew and Ken. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Keep on geeking on, guys.
You have been listening to the latest episode of the iHeart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.